many options.
Wow.
Well, that's one thing that's for sure, Kalaris.
That is true. All right, let's get into it. Game number 2 here, L5 and MVP Black. MVP Black needs to make that road to recovery happen as they're going to ban out Vala to start, and that's the second time here.
A lot of respect for SCSC's Vala here.
Yeah.
MVP Black doesn't want to deal with it. Once again, Abathur ban, identical. Does Black open up with the Haka again?
I think Dahaka is definitely their priority target in a lot of ways and for a lot of reasons. If not, they give it over to L5, who will definitely do a lot with it. They love their early globals. They tend to play it much more frequent on large maps. I'd be really surprised if they didn't.
I think it's a Genji party between the two Korean teams.
There you go.
Yeah, I think the Koreans have so much mechanical micro skill that they look at a hero like Genji, where the min-max is huge. The more skill you have, the better he gets. And they think, okay, we still want to rival you. That pride is there.
This seems like opening week, where we had 3 heroes that were always locked in, always revolving around that first pick and the first rotation on the second pick. And almost every team that's been winning has started to slightly deviate from the norm, and they've had different success. This surprises me that both of them have adapted to the first week's meta and have stayed within that meta. They're not bad picks by any means. It's just a matter of we expected some flexibility to them to fall back to what they normally run and then maybe mix things up. The fact that L5 is okay with this new meta of a Nubarak Vala, or excuse me, a Nubarak Uther, and to fall away from their global prioritization. That is what stood out to me most between their run last year leading into BlizzCon and here now that we're at the mid-season Brawl. Stitches everywhere.
It feels like they're just trading comps.
Yeah, but this is completely different.
Yeah.
I know it looks very the same, and you guys know this too, but there is still 0 follow-up for Stitches.
Yes.
That means that your support and one pick has to be that follow-up. So you're either going to have a warrior or a support that can follow up, or Kel'Thas. This vastly reduces the flexibility MVP Black has in the draft compared to what L5 had last time. Whereas L5 have completely opened up the draft for themselves. Had they gone Uther Dahaka, they're now forced on double warrior comps. Had they gone Dahaka and Nubarak, double warrior comp.
Yep.
But with Uther and Nubarak, they can still go anywhere.
Fan?
Yeah, it's a very versatile composition for L5 for sure with that opening. The Stitches Tychus is really weird to me. Not only did they not take the Malfurion or something like a Greymane in the Tychus slot, you know, they picked the Tychus really early. I'm not quite sure why that is. And with the Malfurion being banned out by L5, it's not going to be easy to find a follow-up to Stitches anymore.
Well, there is nothing. A Morales grenade popping back into your team one more time.
Yeah, I mean,
7-sided.
as far as the supports go, maybe 7-sided is the option, but you're going to have to rely on like a Kel'Thas or something, and that's just a lot of procs for the Guardian of Ancient Kings, not to mention Kel'Thas is a little bit on the weaker side as far as we can see for this meta.
And it's into a Nubarak.
Yeah.
So if you don't have Kel'Thas, Tyrande is a non-entity this tournament. And none of the supports have hard CC. That means anyone can walk away from a hook, if not being saved by Divine Shield anyway, either way.
Greymane now really stands out to me. If we look at the bans on the side of MVP Black, they're clearly targeting SC.
Yep.
You could be denying the Tychus from them, denying the Vala, and denying the Li Ming, but that does open up the door for Greymane. Maybe they're starting to question whether SC is off of those auto attack heroes. That seems impossible. SC even said in his interview earlier is that, look, I'm good at any hero that I play, any role that I play, but to clearly target one individual person through your first 2 bans and to prioritize Tychus that heavily,
yeah,
you do open this up.
No, but I don't even get the Li Ming ban at all.
Historically, he's played it on here.
Yeah, but yeah, I just don't think Li Ming is that good on Infernal per se, especially into Stitches. Greymane with Cursed Bullet is huge. So L5, I think, is very happy with that.
Yeah, very solid draft by L5 right now. And to be fair, the Tychus pick, I have seen this before against the Nubarak. It does burn the cocoon relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it is a hard target to burst out of the cocoon. So if you can take the level 13 spell shield, it gives you pretty much hardened against all spells. And you also have Odin, which can unstoppable the cocoon if you cast it during
Yeah.
the cocoon time. So I have seen that before, but don't know if it's worth a second pick here.
So now
Dahaka?
there is a bit more lockdown with Arthas, the E, the W, so that's pretty nice. Probably the best pick here for MVP Black with Rhaegar, bit of slows. L5, they've got good damage, but I think if they go into Dahaka, would they be a little bit too low? You're up against Stitch's Arthas. You get one cursed bullet.
Dahaka feels like a bit of a trap to me.
Yeah.
Arthas kind of just stomped Dahaka in the last matchup, and L5 had the Arthas, so
I think you want Kel'Thas here.
Kel'Thas would be pretty good. I mean, anything that's not Dahaka, I feel like
Kyoja
would
used to be their
pretty good right
Tassadar player, but
Yeah,
You still-
Dahaka, probably too little damage. They would suffer from the same problem Black had last game.
Even a different front line, as long as it's not Dahaka. Dahaka's like not enough damage, and it's a really bad matchup into the Arthas in general, so.
Sonya would have been a great pick when you look at L5's draft, but not against Tychus.
Okay, I like that last pick there. Leoric has the favorable matchup into both Stitches and the Arthas, whereas Dahaka would have had bad matchups
Right.
there, so.
Yeah.
Don't forget, guys, whilst all of this is going on, you can use the hashtag for either of these teams to vote as to who you think is going to be victorious going into our next game. So, guys, thoughts on the draft?
it just, L5 is changing before my very eyes. They
Yeah.
used to just play the map, let you come to them, but as we saw earlier and as we see within their drafts now, they're more than willing to fight. And I think that MVP Black brings that out of them. If we go back to Eastern Clash, MVP Black won that by forcing a lot of
Yeah.
fights. Maybe L5 realized that, hey, we can't just let you bring the fight to us and we fight on our heels the whole time. We need to come forward too, and I think maybe this is part of it. It's the evolution of L5 here.
It does feel like there's been a bit of a wake-up call for L5 from the group stage to the bracket. It feels like they're a bit more spring in the step, considering that they're going into these series and playing well.
Yeah, I guess it turns out it feels pretty good when you win 6 maps in a row with 2 double 3-0s. I really didn't think they would get to this point where they're
Right.
threatening MVP Black, but it's very easy to have good team spirit while you're winning.
All right, predictions.
Still like an L5. I gotta go L5 again.
I didn't like the start of Black's draft, but I really like how it ended. I'm actually looking that L5 has a damage problem, and you've got Leoric into Tychus, who just dies like that. I'm actually suddenly thinking MVP Black has the better one.
And Fan.
Went with MVP last time. I was a little bit disappointed in the performance there, and L5 has convinced me with their play. Gonna go with L5.
All right, well, let's see what the chat thinks as well, as we have 2-1 here at the desk. Previously it was 50-50, and now it's very much so in L5's favor going into game number 2. They're 1 up at the moment here in this best of 5, which determines who moves on to play Ding Test or who is eliminated. Let's head over to our commentary team for game number 2.
Well, our audience apparently has lost their faith in MVP Black, and I have to admit the same goes for me. Do you think they can redeem themselves? The draft looks better for the second map.
It looks better for them. And, you know, when we watched Sake play, or interviewed him, he came out and said he thinks it's 3-1. So they have 1 game to give up, and he thinks that they have the opportunity to be able to come back. I do as well.
Well, we have currently to the left side in blue L5 starting on our second map with Nubarak played by Noblesse, Swoy on the Uther, SCSC on Greymane, Nacho Jin on Tassadar, and Jonga on the Leoric.
And in the red, down 1 game is MVP Black. Reset is on Genji. Sake playing Tychus. Tist on Stitches. Arthas played by Kyoja. And Mary Day on Rhaegar.
And one of the things that we see immediately is that Leoric is realizing as well, hey, we have maybe a bit of a problem with the damage here, so he goes into the Drain Hope build right away. We've seen a lot of Leorics in this tournament switch over to the Royal Focus on level 4 and more so trying to soak the lanes. But in this particular setup, MVP Black has a very beefy front line that you somehow have to break.
Yeah, you know, having the percentile damage will be able to help out, but so with this pressure on SCSC, he ends up falling. That is now first blood over to MVP.
MVP Black comes out swinging in this second game, and so far they look a bit better. But let's not forget that in the early game of the Dragonshire match, they also looked way more coordinated than later on. And here we have L5 with a potential answer. But no, Stitches says, you need a hand, my friend? I got you covered.
I love the bait that we saw there, the Tassadar shield last second. Mary Day, he got overextended, thinking he would be able to ensure a kill. Nice saving once again coming up from Tis, but oh man, already we see what feels like a different approach to the game for MVP Black, or I guess not actually. This is what the first couple of minutes of last game looked like too, Kaldor.
Definitely. The thing is though, I like their comp a lot more. They have finally some damage, they have the lockdown, they can still follow up a Stitches hook, but they need to deliver. So right now, let's find out how L5 is going to play this. When we're looking at the split on the map, we have Tassadar taking the bottom up to the top lane. It's a lonely Arthur that is going to be met by Leoric very soon. And still the Stitches hooks. This is, of course, what we really need to watch out for. If Tis can land those and Arthas is with him, then they have very good isolation potential and getting a kill.
All right, so when it comes to the Shrine potential, we know Arthas is very good. Tychus is he's above average. Stitches for a warrior is actually pretty good. His passive, the AoE damage, and his slam. But on the side of L5, we know Greymane is a monster. Tassadar is great as well, and so is Leoric. So slight advantage going over to L5, but it all comes down to how many members are committed.
And the thing is, MVP Black has a slight advantage, in my opinion, when it comes to holding position on the Shrine. When it comes to pure AoE and poke from the outside, then the L5 is fantastic, but still oppositional with a beefy front line. MVP Black can try and make a play to dominate the Shrine phase here. Right now, we still have a few trades happening as we have the first few minions taken by both of the teams.
Yeah, and there's not going to be royal focus, but still a bit of emphasis on to getting the side soak. Now Genji and Leoric are looking to join here. It's almost dead even, 10 to 10 roughly when it comes to these skeletal defenders. Nacho Jin takes a bit of damage with Genji moving up. That's a big knockup though. Nobilis gets the follow-up. Kyoto ends up falling here in a nice disengage from Taz.
Arthur's down as CSC in trouble, and Reset goes in and delivers with Genji, and he's not done yet. He goes for Nubarak, but the heal is out, and there is Reset in trouble, as is Meriday, both of them low, and that's the double kill, but a Nubarak is falling. It's an even trade threat, and wait, Stitches also down.
Yeah, and look at those long, sustaining team fights. You cannot take in Arthas, or excuse me, a Leoric and Tassadar in those long fights. He is so effective at trading into percentiles, high health pools. It is just L5 right now. The way they played that was so awesome. And I had a question I was going to ask you before about Tassadar's 10 and what your thought process would be, because we know they lack damage, but I'm almost feeling like L5 has so much percentage and their sustained teamfight is so impactful that I almost want a force wall, keep him busy, slowly whittle away at MVP Black. I think that's the only way they're going to make it.
I can totally see what you're saying, especially around the Shrine. When they can trap someone and get the isolation, go on the target, they can achieve a lot with this. And as long as they feel they have to always fight over the Shrines, that would be a really good option. Personally, I would be afraid to not take Archon, I have to admit. I can see them trying to go get the isolation. If it was me sitting in the booth when it comes 10, it would be me just hovering over the button and saying like, nah, I have to go with the damage here. But I totally understand what you mean. They could go either way with this.
It's just one of those things where long sustaining team fights are not something that is very popular within this meta. So the interplay between, again, the Tassadar, especially his level 4, the buff that we've seen into that, I don't even know how that interacts with Spectral Leash. I'm pretty sure he goes from 0 to 100 in 2 auto attacks. It's just an absurd amount of damage. So the late game, the long fights, L5 actually might be able to thrive.
Yeah, if you get that 20, if you bring Leoric online, then MVP Black might be in a lot of trouble. I mean, think about that front line. That's high hit point heroes right there. All the percentage damage that you can get is just absolutely fantastic in this. So thinking about the 20, it actually feels a bit as if MVP Black is on a clock here. But first of all, they're getting a good hook in as they're trying to take down Swoy. But with Tassadar shields, it's just too tricky.
Yeah, I mean, this entire draft and the power spikes for both of the teams is very unlike what I feel like we've seen at any point throughout the midseason brawl. So we'll have to see where L5 commits when it comes to their heroics and how they play it out. But for now, we see almost a dead even game, but L5's dominating in experience.
But it's a super cool dynamic.
It's
really a lot of fun watching this right now. Especially since we are seeing very soon what L5 plan for the mid game is. They have that level lead, so they're hitting the 9 very soon now. The earlier 10 is definitely going to reveal a lot. And they still have all the dive potential, especially with the Nubarak who went on 4 into Underking. We've seen better barbs on certain maps. over here, you could have definitely played with the talent.
Yeah, you could have. And now that MVP Black is so far behind in experience, that you have two options. You either hyper commit right now, and honestly, as I see the experience trickle up, there's no opportunity. You either hyper commit, look for a pick or two, hope you can get 40 skeletal defenders. The death timers are short enough that that's going to be unlikely, so it's going to take a lot of stealing from Tychus, throwing out those grenades to be able to remove them from L5. But it started, and it looks like MVP Black, that's the option they're going to take.
Yeah, they're moving up. They're moving up and onto the shrine, and they're trying to take this. But that experience bar is just ticking towards the left, and once it hits the 10, then we're seeing an immediate engage by L5.
Yeah, this is a really risky moment here for MVP Black.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is, but they're going to go for it. Reset actually moves in. Genji getting a bit of poke. Noblesse finding himself very low. He has to burrow away. 22 skeletal defenders to MVP Black,
There's
but
the
look
wave.
there's the 10. The wave is here.
And they immediately retreat. MVP Black immediately retreats. And I have to ask this right now. How likely was it that MVP Black really is able to sneak in all the defenders they need before the 10 comes online? Because what they could have done is from the start, go onto the lanes and make sure that they soak and at least get something out of it. Maybe push a few structures down, force L5 to spread, but they committed a lot of time into the middle and they got nothing for the work.
Again, it hits one of those things where the skirmishing of Genji and how fast it can snowball. I can see you testing the waters and wanting to take the risk once. Ooh, that instant entomb, the cursed bullet,
Nice.
and the helping hand out. Tis saving the day.
Second time. Really well played by him here. That was a dead Arthur, there's no doubt about it. And then all of a sudden, Stitches is once again reaching out and helping his buddy. Finally the level 10 for MVP Black, and they can fight on even talents now, but the mid fort is already forfeit.
Yeah, I wonder what heroic we're going to see here coming out from Tychus specifically. If it is the Dragon Laser or if it's going to be the focus onto Odin. There's an argument for both. The argument for Odin is always, you know, it's Infernal Shrines. You want to siege with the Punisher. It's not too effective onto its own, but into a composition, if you feel like it's going to be hyper-aggressive, you aren't going to be able to survive very long. You can find yourself really thriving if you have the laser.
I actually have a question about the Tychus builds that we've seen, because we have seen the drill. What is your personal take on still going for In the Rhythm on 4 if you plan taking the drill? Because one of the reasons why the talent actually just completely went off is that the synergy with the level 13 didn't exist any longer. So you didn't heal during the duration, you healed afterwards. But in a situation like this, if you would commit to a drill, would you rather prefer them to go into a more sustainable damage output against that front line and go for In the Rhythm instead?
I mean, so again, it looks to the approach of how L5 wants to take the fight. I think for the long sustaining fight that they're going to have happen, hold on a second here. The initiation there, Tis takes a bit of damage, but Wraith walk out. So, you know, more, again, just feeling out the initiation. It costs 3 heroics on the side of L5, though.
Yeah. And in this case, it actually doesn't matter, but as because he goes into Odin, but as a hypothetical, because we had it a few times.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I can see if you want to match L5 to the late game for the long sustaining team fights, I can see going in the rhythm even without the Odin or even with the Odin itself. But if you want to make sure you get a Genji reset, you want to get the bigger they are, you want to focus on making that burst happen as soon as possible. And so, you know, it's all down to the perspective of what does MVP Black think their best win condition is in fights. I personally think it's safe to go for the long.
And I guess in this case, one of their thought processes is also, hey, we have a Stitches. If we can burst a hook target, then we're going to get the kills here. But so far, whatever MVP Black was thinking, it doesn't really work out for them. In kills, they're nearly even with L5. Don't get me wrong here, but when we're looking at the objective and when we're looking at structures, when we're looking at experience, it's L5 all the way.
Yeah, it very much is. And, you know, not being able to get a pick there for reset on mid is only going to slow that down. The Cosmic Cramp has already been removed an entire level and talent tier. Hook not landing is only a setback for Tis and the members of MVP Black. They get an advantage here early on as Skeletal Defenders, but I expect a hard initiation here for L5 before 13.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Look at that
especially
flank.
with the Entomb that they can use. And there it is. They go for Arthur's. The Drain Hope is on. He loses HP so fast, but there's the Ancestral that keeps him alive.
Look at Reset trying to get that DPS out. Stitches finds, or excuse me, Tassadar finds himself with a Divine Shield. Nacho Jin barely surviving. Same with Jung Ha. Reset goes in. He doesn't get it. Flat out denied the Reset. The members of MVP Black barely keeping alive, but now 2 are down. L5 pulls ahead.
Genji and Tychus, both dead. Uta also falling, but it's Rega who's the next victim, and they clean house. Stitches also dead, and this is L5 with 8-4 kills and them taking another Punisher. Big fight here from L5.
I think that team fight put to a very solid argument as to why you go into Archon versus into Force Wall. Like, we saw the Archon for the survivability, which a lot of burst is going to be desired on the side of MVP Black. They have committed to the Stitches blow up. But look at when the long fight happens, L5, their draft, what they managed to make happen with their percentage and the Leo task, it's very hard for MVP Black to do anything.
And you know, the thing that I have with this is also, it's not going to get any better. We talked about the 20, but we don't even need them to get to 20. Once you hit 16 and you have cooldown reduction on Leoric, he's going to drain you 6 days to Sunday, and he has 2 primary targets on that team.
And that is why with the Force Wall idea, because Stitches, no gap closer, no disengage from that whatsoever. Arthas also finds himself completely trapped. Can you imagine just banking on reset after reset on your W because you have an eternal train hope, really?
They have only one hope in this scenario once the 16 hit, and this is just roll over them, initiate into them, and kill them. And they're currently trying to do exactly that.
Yeah, that was the call here, but the Mist Tomb is not the way you want to start off this team fight. Odin is there getting a lot of poke. The members of MVP Black seem to be winning, though Nobilis is the first to fall.
Yeah, 1 kill already, and Uberak is down, and that's the problem. SC is also going to fall. The big question is, can they get a 3rd kill? Swoy on the retreat, but Reset is getting reset after reset and wants to go in for another kill against Tassadar. It's a 4-man. They drop 4 heroes, and that is MVP Black, closing the gap in experience to a huge part, but they are still an entire level behind.
Now it's in their best interest to open up the win condition as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Yes, you have won a fight, but you need to make sure the next fight you win, at least if you aren't winning the game, you're getting a major objective with no boss on Infernal Shrines. Those are very rare. So the fact this is a double stack of camp, MVP Black has to siege up a mid, and if they don't, they need to make sure they get a fort in a different lane while it draws aggro out of L5. That is the biggest thing. Forts and keeps. MVP Black has a window. I just don't know if they can keep getting those style of picks because it seems like a bit of an overextension.
Yeah, and also now the 16 is ready for L5. MVP Black has to meet that. And they're going in nearly the kill against Leoric. But keep in mind that he has now his 16 talent. So we see the cooldown reduction coming out as expected. And we have something else as well. Alpha Killer on the Grey main. Oh, this is going to hurt so much if you are playing a frontliner for MVP Black.
Yeah, you saw MVP Black go for the double camp, and it netted them. I don't know how much damage exactly they had before that, but the front wall was the only thing to fall. And that's the kind of stuff, MVP Black is not the only team to lie victim to that. Infernal Shrines and maps like Tomb of the Spider Queen, they're very difficult to find what is always the most optimal situation. But again, I would have much rather them focus on getting that fort, or at least getting the damage out, even if they don't secure it, because in the end, denying those camps is only taking a little bit of like a fraction of experience off the map for L5, and even then you can clear it up yourself.
I mean, they at least have the 16 talent
Nice
themselves.
damage.
Now they can use that. Talking damage, nullification on the 13 for Tassadar is going to help a lot with that Genji once he starts jumping the backline. And then annihilating a lot of that damage when it tries to disrupt everything that you have set up is definitely going to be a big deal. But now we have more fights coming on the same talent here. The big question is just, can MVP Black get that 1 kill at the start of the fight, or will L5 succeed in forcing a sustained fight, which they are bound to win with Leoric, with a Drain, and with also, of course, the constant poke on the side of Tassadar and Greymane.
Yeah, Nacho Jin dropping his dimensional shift now. It's going to be important that MVP Black try and force this before to force the Archon, but that is the Entomb. The damage coming out. Tis gets the E. He's gonna keep himself up, and Cocoon's broken. Ancestral Land.
Ancestral Land's barely. The Dragon Blade is also out as we're seeing them go for Leoric, but he's gonna draw. Oh, he's getting killed. Leoric is down. Perfect play by Reset, getting him low, anticipating the Wraithwalk and going immediately in. That's the kill they needed. MVP Black, have they done it?
Have they done it? I think they may have. Nobilis is yet to fall, though, and Reset actually had to move away. Look at the damage. Tassadar poking it out. The hook is now on to Nacho Jin. 4-4-1 MVP Black.
God. No, you don't. Tassadar tries to go through the wall, and in that moment, Tis just says, not gonna happen, buddy. You're gonna die as well. Uther, the only one still alive after that slaughter. And it all started with Leoric. A big part of the percentage damage in these fights falling thanks to Genji.
Yeah, it's amazing to see the MVP Black being successful there, but we have to keep in mind that that's just the start of what could be them coming back structurally. They still need a way to open up this map. The fort on top is going to be the main focus of the Punisher, but a keep front wall is about the most optimal thing you can get with a Punisher at this stage of the game.
They need to really try and push this. The one thing that really works in their favor is they have Odin still. They can use that to siege behind the Punisher to get a bit more extra damage.
They do. The Genji not committing with this Punisher already shows the intent of MVP Black. The fort, I think, is going to be at most what they're aiming for. The members of L5 have transitioned. Leoric is now going to make his rotation upward. Now that the camp has been shown, L5 knows that it's a 4 versus 5, but again, they expect the rotation. They want to play it safe. It's all about the keep front wall.
And Genji is also super fast with the agile dismount here. He can bridge that gap, and he's trying to do exactly that. Here we go, and Tomb already used. It's a good one too, but the Punisher is jumping in and going deep once again. The Ancestral on Stitches. The hook is good. Is it good enough?
Swipe keeps himself alive. He's not going to go into ghost form. Reset goes in. He does not get a reset. Now look at the Punisher now at 25% HP. The keep is not even touched really on the side of MVP Black.
Swoy is so low and barely getting out. That was looking really grim for a second, but MVP Black, they have completely turned this game right now. From a structural point of view, L5 is still ahead, but if you look at the experience, MVP Black is all of a sudden the one leading by an entire level, and they are really closing in on 20. And once they hit that, this is when they really need to push the envelope. Go for the objectives, go for the camps, try to take down more structures, open a win condition ideally, before L5 reaches Spectral Leech and all the other 20 abilities.
Yeah, I've been surprised that MVP Black has been able to put up a fight in the later stages of this game. I did think that Leoric, with his percentage damage and getting the cooldown on his Drain Up, merely almost always instantly refreshed would be enough here, but it seems not to be the case. MVP Black is outplaying L5, and with the 20 talent here, I do think the Spectral Leech is something to look out for, and even if we don't see the Spectral Leech, I can see, you know, the Heart and Focus outplay on the side of Leoric. That kind of drawing aggro and resources from MVP Black is enough to still be able to win this game. So L5 is in it, but they need that 20 talent here, and they cannot mess up the next fight.
Yeah, and I feel they forced the issue a bit too much in the last battle at the top lane. They were really trying to engage hard with also Leoric dropping the Entomb immediately and hoping for a kill against Stitches, but with a great reaction from Rhaegar, first waiting it out and then dropping the Ancestral. That never happened, and they were very confident, L5 that is, going into the fight, but all of a sudden it turned against them, and Genji just did everything right there. So at this point, it's all about the experience. They cannot lose Tacita here. Archon being popped, they lose the cooldown. Even the web has been used. Cocoon is also out, and that's 2 cooldowns burned just as the shrine is announced on the map.
50 seconds before Cocoon will be back for L5. 94 until the Archon is going to be restored.
Oh my god.
That is worse than losing the Dragon Blade, I think, here. The Cocoon is, luckily, the more impactful of the two. Nacho Din does need the secondary dimensional shift to keep the pressure off of him, it feels like, in most of these team fights, but I would like to see L5 try and wait for that Cocoon. Again, that's 25 seconds out. The 20 talent tier is here, and the fight is going to be all over this shrine.
Shrine is activated, and they're starting to poke here. Spectral Leech is now taken. It's a big, big tool when you try to put the pressure onto Arthas and Stitches. There's Stitches, Ancestral once again, as we have the percentage damage coming out. Zhonghua moving in with the Leoric and the Wraithwalk, slowing them down, trying to see if they can maybe focus on another target. Once again, hit after hit with that massive mace. They're dropping the hit points off that tank.
But nobody got an advantage over the Skeletal Defenders. MVP Black backs out. Oh man, and they end up picking up a 10 advantage here. But the fight is still, you know, raging isn't maybe the word I would use here, but the posturing very much is. Kyocha taking so much very damage, noblesse. He goes in and the kill is there.
There it is. Finally, the Drain Hope getting some value. They get the kill, but look at Genji going in, looking for the resets here. Sake
look
is
at
a Genji is down, and this is a disaster for MVP Black. All of a sudden, L5 is back. They take the 3rd kill. They move in again. They go for the triple. They go for the quad kill, and they are looking for the penta as we see Rhaegar fall, and L5 waits no time and moves straight into the mid lane.
Zhang Ha looked like a final boss in that fight while everybody else was skirmishing. He just comes back. He's like, I've 2v1'd. Who's next? Bring on the battle. And now L5 with 40 seconds to play with the map. They are going to rotate on in. This keep is down, and this is going to be game. L5 should take this lead 2-0.
Level 20 was all they needed. The damage from Greymane, the damage from Leoric, going for the front line, going for the tanks. It was too much for MVP Black to handle. Black made an amazing comeback in the mid game, but at the end of the match, it is once again L5 that stands triumphant on the core of their opponents. They take the game on Infernal Shrines against MVP Black and walk away with a victory.
The mentality of MVP Black after that game has got to be difficult because there was a moment where it felt like they were going to come back. You know, they had a nice tempo very early on, then they gained a lot of control, but the 20 spike, you talked about it, the Spectral Leech impact, everything about the 20 just looked horrific for them.
It was insane. You could see the tanks just getting hit once, twice by Leoric. The drain comes in and they're like, I need to get out of there. This is not going to end well for me. And once that the Ancestral was used, nobody dared to walk up to Leoric again.
Yeah, and you know, they were a fraction of an inch from reset, managing to get another dash on the Genji to look for more kills. I really do think if they had hit that, you know, Leeming breaking point of there's the first and suddenly the whole fight ends, MVP could have won it, but they didn't, and then we watched what Zhonghua could do.
And just imagine that situation. You are behind, you make the comeback, and then 20 hits and you still lose and you find yourself down 2 maps. Can MVP Black come back? Before we head into game number 3, we're going to hear about from our panel what they think happened there on Infernal Shrines in game number 2.
That's right. A tough time there for MVP Black in game 2. They have themselves, you know, a hand in that game, definitely, during the later stages of it. But L5, very patient, very concise about their execution, and they're waiting until they're able to hit that power spike.
It's not necessarily the fact that they are lacking the team fighting aspect. It took a very long time. I remember looking up very far into the game and seeing that 0 forts were down on the side of L5. It took a very long time. It seems like L5, they know how to play these comps. Again, I don't know what it is that they're doing with these compositions. They're running the Genji hard, but it's just they're lacking the follow-up. And it's not necessarily the follow-up on damage, the follow-up on kills. It's the follow-up in the map control, which is one of the things that L5 excels at more than almost anybody in the world. And whenever they have their opportunities, they take them and they run with them. And that's L5 right now putting on a show.
Yeah, I agree. L5 played admirably. Map control has always been their strongest suit. But now they're winning the team fights as well. And I think both teams played almost equally well here. I just feel that it's a story of a 10 out of 10 support Uther against a 6 out of 10 support in Rhaegar.
Right.
Uther has been on the side of L5 twice. I think what we're going to see next is MVP Black risking a Vala Ariel composition from the opponent.
Yeah.
That's what they've banned twice. Vala, they've given Uther twice, and he's just been playing out of his mind. And I don't think Swoy could do the same.
Right.
No matter how well he plays, I don't think he can do the same as what Uther was giving L5.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I mean, at least that was a pretty back and forth game there.
Yeah.
They traded blow for blow really up until the very end there, and it ended up being a level 20 fight that cost MVP Black the game. In the level 20 fight, I do think it was a little bit of a risky fight for MVP Black to take there, just showing once again that, you know, their mindset going into these fights seems to be a little bit off. So we do have a replay here showing the last fight.
Do you think they could afford not to take the fight?
I think they could. They have the mid keep still alive here. So yeah, if we can pause this for a second. So the problem here is they just disengage. There's 3 ultimates down on either side. So as far as ultimates goes, you have 2 ultimates. The enemy team has 2 ultimates here. But the problem here is they are way lower HP as a team. So L5, pretty much full HP on all counts. MVP Black has like half HP on 3 heroes. So if we can play this on, we see Kyocha, he doesn't pop ghouls here. He's not popping ghouls immediately. And if we slow this down, we see that if you're gonna contest this, why not pop ghouls right now and push in? Why not pop Odin and push in? We have 2 ultimates here.
Oh, yeah. And
We
they're
see
kind of
Kyocha-
slow release ults as well.
Yeah, and to be fair, the timing that Kyocha popped it there was not that bad. He popped it right before the re-engage there, but L5 just 5-man focuses him down. You do have 2 or 3 second cooldown for each goal there. And Sake, I think he got a little bit greedy. He wanted to go in, use his minigun before he used Odin, but he didn't use his ultimate again. that's, oh, just kidding. That's not big red button Odin, so that's not as bad, but I still think he should have just Odin'd up here, gold up a little bit earlier, and they should have just taken the fight if you decide to take the fight. Otherwise, back up, because you guys are way behind on life bars, and, you know, just ended up, you didn't use as many ultimates as the other team. You're behind on life bars. Took the fight. It wasn't clean enough. To be fair, the Genji was almost in a really good position there. Reset had an amazing Dragon Blade position.
But that's your point, right? Because Arthas used ghouls maybe once, and he could have used them many times to pop to full life. Everyone on L5 was 20% life after Genji. And if Arthur stayed alive and there was an Odin, maybe they get that tipping point, right?
Yeah, exactly. But to be fair, that is a hard play to make. Kyocha popped his Icebound Fortitude and goes at about 60% life, which is usually enough to stay alive as an Arthas. But it was just, he walked into 5 people and that was not enough to stay alive at level 20.
Well, of course here, MVP Black have one more life left in this tournament, so they need to keep it going. They need to keep it going fast. But we're going to go to a short break. When we're back, when we return, game number 3 between Korea and Korea, L5 goes up against MVP Black.
Peace. It has been my life's work. Through honesty and diplomacy, there is no obstacle. There is no obstacle we can't overcome. Within each of our hearts lies a yearning for peace. Even in this odd place, I truly believe that each of us can find a way to live in harmony. As I was saying, I am Jaina Proudmoore. We don't need to fight, but if you insist, so be it.
potentially one more game stands between MVP Black and utter destruction here in the mid-season brawl, as L5 is looking on form and on point against their Korean counterparts. And it is a bit of a hard time here for a former world champion MVP Black. They're going to need to step it up here, as this could actually be Merry Day's last Heroes game on a professional stage ever, Jay. How that's a big deal.
He talked about how much it meant to him and his comfort coming in. He recognizes this opportunity and wants to achieve everything that he's done in the past. It's been a long time since MVP Black won a global championship, dating back to last spring. The Eastern Clash, of course, was a big deal. This has got to be a bigger deal, and there would be no better way to go out than this tournament for him.
Yeah. On the other side, L5 looks hungrier today and the previous day than they certainly did in the group stages. They're putting on some good performances here, Fan, and showing up.
Yeah, I mean, L5 all of a sudden turning on the heat. Grubby mentioned they went 6-0 previously, and now they're 2-0, so they're just suddenly they're on fire. It's looking real scary to be against L5 right now.
And suddenly I see a new emerging storyline in the tournament. As an L5 with 8-0, if they make it past MVP Black, they get their rematch against Dignitas, who is 3-0 against L5 in this tournament. Maybe a powerful motivator to get some little bit of sweet revenge.
Imagine if they did. That would be crazy after Dignitas was able to dismantle them. For the most part, the first game in all of that, I'll still say L5 played really well up till the very, very end of it. But going on to game number 3 now, where are we going in terms of maps? Going to be Battlefield of Eternity. This is quite the map to potentially decide the fate here of MVP Black.
It's a teamfight map, it's a small map, it's a comeback map, apparently.
MVP Black has struggled somehow on this map. After it being one of their best maps, now they look shaky at times. I mean, just look to the game earlier today.
Now, to be fair, L5 has also struggled in the exact same way that MVP just did. You know, when it comes to Battlefield, it's almost like first team to lose both their keeps wins, so it's going to be an interesting one.
So that's the new strategy, right? Give up both keeps so you can come back and win.
Yeah, but you must have something that can clear wave and either be a global or can get back in the fight fast. Well, we'll see how these teams decide.